So, hey guys, welcome to the Unscripted podcast. My name is Karim and I'm your host. My guests on this episode are Yash, Rathod, and Shaamil Karim. Both, we all go way back when we were in high school and all together, all of us. So it's a really, really exciting episode for me to see these guys grow so much since we were in high school. So I'd like to introduce Yash first. Yash is the founder of a new age NFT startup in India called Diginoor, and he's also pursuing his computer science degree from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. While Shaamil is the other founder of the startup Diginoor, and he's going to be heading to Dartmouth College soon to pursue a degree in computer science. So, would you guys like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I think I can take it first. So thanks for that intro, Karan. I'm super excited to, uh, you know, see this episode and see how it turns out. But just to introduce myself a bit, I'm Yash. Karan and I went to the same high school in Chennai. I've been a passionate programmer all my life. I've participated in numerous programming competitions. And as Karan mentioned, I'm pursuing my computer science from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And apart from that, I just like building cool products that could potentially solve problems. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Karan. It's pretty exciting to see this podcast grow as well. Yeah, I think just a little bit of introduction. Apart from what you said, I think Yash and I mean, even Karan, we go all the way back to like eighth grade, and we have a lot of different memories of like getting into computer science for the first time, and then yeah, since then I think I've basically found a big interest for entrepreneurship in general. Like that's VCs. Product management, and like even the concept of blitzscaling, something that I find very interesting. But yeah, that's a quick intro to me. And also I'd like to add that I'm a huge Barcelona fan, if that adds anything. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really interesting, both of you all. We do go way back, and I knew that you guys always had that thing for computer science. Knew that together you guys were always a dynamic duo. Making those startups and everything, trying to start something all together. It finally paid off with Diginoor, with all that everything. So just going back, to your time in high school and how that impacted you. I think high school, we're definitely just like out of high school now. We just finished completed high school like a year ago. Well, like what were the main reasons, what were the foundations you founded in your high school which impacted your life, especially any clubs, anything you did, any projects, special projects you guys did, which impacted you from your high school and made you later start your company now?
Yeah. I guess like there's multiple factors. I don't think it was high school as such that created this so-called entrepreneurial spirit, but it was more of the people I grew up around, whether it's my uncle, my dad, or even my friends like Shaamil. I think I just grew up around people who are very entrepreneurial in nature, who love building businesses. And I guess, in my household, we always glorified great founders, whether it's founders at Google, any of these big companies, Steve Jobs. So I think that was an inspiration, and that made me see entrepreneurship as the one way in which you could impact maximum lives in a positive manner. And today, with the way the world works, I mean, you have that power right at your fingertips, right, through code. So I think it was a very, very obvious path that was shown to me in the early years of my life. Um, and apart from that, I'm really glad that school gave me the opportunity to learn programming. I mean, I wouldn't say it was to the most advanced level, but it was still a start. And I think that start was important because we had some great students in our CS class in school. We had a great teacher, and we were all just having fun solving problems with code. And I think these were a few factors that contributed to, us being or me being very entrepreneurial from that age in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have a pretty similar answer. I think like a lot of factors affected this entrepreneurial drive from like outside school, but from inside school, I think it impacted me on like two major fronts. One was the social level, where I was able to meet a lot of great peers, right? Like a variety of peers, some of whom went on to become like close friends of mine, like Yash, and we decided to start up. And then On the professional level, I think when I joined high school, like Sisha in 8th grade, I honestly had minimal or like limited knowledge of like computer science. I was almost like I was figuring out how to pass computer science tests at an 8th grade, and then I met a couple of great guys, and then Celine ma'am, as we know, a computer science teacher. I think they helped us learn CS, helped me learn CS, and just like get equipped with like the skills needed for like the long term game for like like getting into tech and all that. So yeah, I think on the professional and social level, those are the two ways high school helped me the most.
Yeah, I think for sure, peers matter a lot. I mean, more when I meant high school, I meant people you're meeting around, because I think everyone from our high school, they did something special in high school itself. They went on to make these projects and kind of got a little competitive to a level that, you also want to do, take the next step and, get into it. It helps a lot getting into good college as well. So for sure. How did you, so getting into more into your path right now in Diginoor, how did you guys come up with the idea? I know that NFTs were a big thing in different countries like the United States, everything, and you didn't even know Indian government would be approving the NFTs. How did you guys come up with the idea and know that it would happen soon after that?
Yeah, so I think this was like early last year where we all had online school, and most of us really weren't doing much in school. We were just like tune in, go to sleep, or do some other work on the side. Um, but I think it was around this time when the so-called NFT boom began, and most of us were very new to the concept of NFTs. We were only talking about it because there was big money associated with it, right? I mean, it's just the truth. So I remember vividly one day I was having a conversation with my uncle, um, just about tech in general, and we spoke about NFTs, and my uncle spoke about how we should. I mean, what if someone made NFTs out of scenes from these old movies that have a lot of nostalgic value, like Sholay, and immediately I was like, yeah, I mean that would be cool because you have a lot of these random art pieces selling for millions. So I'm sure popular movie scenes should equal, if not better, that, right? And then I happened to mention the idea to my dad, and my father knew a lot of people in the film industry who could get the ball rolling. And we thought, why not? Why not? I mean, since there's an idea and we have the right people to execute it, why not spin up something and try it out? And then I spoke to Shaamil about it as well, and he was happy to join in. And then yeah, from that day on, we just kept building, making partnerships in the film industry, and through all these connects, my father's, and then yeah, one thing led to another, and we had our own uh, blockchain platform where we were selling NFTs of these films.
Yeah, I think Yash basically covered most of the things. I think the initial, like with Yash's uncle, and then a lot of the connections that we had in the film industry is what really pushed us forward, like got us through the door, because the media industry is known to be very closed off. And so, yeah, like, I mean, it took a lot of effort to like convince them and all that, but I'd say that was the deciding factor, because we were thinking of, like we wanted to do, essentially the idea was back then to do NFTs under the two banners of like Indian entertainment, right? It's either cricket or cinema, right? And so like we were like, cinema, we already have certain connections in the industry, so why don't we start with that? And I think that bet paid off well. But to answer your question regarding the regulation, all that, I think I just like saw from like a lot of other successful stories, like even Uber. I'm sure like, a lot of people know that a lot of the ideas that seem very legitimate today, back then were not like didn't have laws to protect them. But the important part is to just like begin, and then as long as you're ethically doing something right, you're not doing anything unethical, I think the law will change and mold itself to help businesses run. So we were like, as long as we're not doing anything illegal, we should be good enough. Like we shouldn't, we're not doing anything like money laundering, anything. So with time, the laws would protect us, is what our hunch was. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's pretty interesting. That that's actually most of the ways the ideas come up with are like out of nowhere, and you're just like, it's the next. You never know, it's the next $1 million idea. If I might quote you guys on that, the $1 million funding thing. How was talking about the funding? How was, again, funding? I think the main thing in funding is having the contacts and everything. I think that's how a lot of people I speak to, they tell me that they have these contacts and that's how they get funding. What is the process behind getting that funding? It's hard to convince investors that my idea is the best idea you should go with. So what was the way that you did that, and how did you go for that?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. In our case, most of our investors came through strong common connects, whether it was Contrary Capital or Sandeep Nerwal from Polygon. How did we convince investors? What we realized that, when we started pitching, I think Shaamil can back me on this. Uh, you know, we were we were pretty sure that we would sell this on the idea itself, right? But as we were pitching our product, our idea to investors, our vision, we realized that most investors were coming on board not primarily because of the product, but primarily because of the team that were Shaamil and me. A lot of our investors were founder first. And that taught us a lot. It showed us that, especially in such an early round, it's very hard to give merit to an idea, or it's very hard to put money on an idea. Most investors back the founders, knowing that if not this idea, these founders will produce something else that is brilliant. So that's what we realized. And the moment we realized that, Shaamil and I decided to be as genuine as possible, as ourselves as possible, because that's the only way we could attract the right investors who actually believed in us and our capability to spin up, the next million or billion dollar idea. And I guess apart from that, the fundamentals had to be in place. We had to have a good minimum viable product. We had a pretty good looking platform, a functional platform, especially in a space where talent was very scarce. The blockchain space, it's not easy to find talent in the space, but we were able to spin up a good product. We were able to spin up good content partnerships, and a lot of these factors came in together, I think, to seal the deal. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think to address the point, Karan, about connections, like needed to raise funding, I don't think that's necessarily, I think that's in fact a good thing, because like raising funds is not only about like building your product, but it's about like building a community of founders, right? Because everyone who all the investors on our cap table, they came through some founder connect of ours who'd already been invested by that company. And so Contrary Capital, a friend of ours, Adit from Zepto, had already put in a word, like, and said that Diginoor is promising. And then FamPay founders put in a word with Kunal Shah. So, I'm just mentioning these names because, we are very grateful for the kind of like founder connects that helped us get where, we wanted to be. With that being said, I think two things are most important when an early stage company is raising, right? Like first, the team, because like Yash said, like it's very hard to determine whether the early stage company is going to do successful, has a successful business model, is going to have like a lot of traction. But they can definitely bet on the founders, because if Yash and I, like I think the hunch that a lot of investors had is that if Yash and I run into roadblocks, we'd figure out a way to like navigate those and like pivot or something, right? On top of that, I'd say the traction is very important. Before we fundraised, we just didn't go only with the idea and like, only with founders. Just to clarify, we also had like, partnerships with some of the most prestigious production houses in India, like AVM. We already did drops of like Rajnikant and all of that. So like we did quite a bit of work to show for it, and then we spoke about the larger vision, which was like the Indian NFT space, and tapping into like this pan-Indian love for Bollywood and Collywood and all that. But these are the two main factors that help us raise funding.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really important. Yeah, betting on the founders is something, I think that is very important, because if you guys don't make if someone doesn't make a good team, then there's no point betting on that startup. Team matters a lot, teamwork, definitely. And you guys make a great team. You can, from high school, we know this, that you guys make one of the most perfect teams, I think, out there. So, going on to a few more questions about Diginoor, I think, so what was the, you guys have been working for such a long time in this field now. I think probably around a year now, around that much. So what do you think was the key learning? You could have had so many failures through that. You could have had so many things. If someone over here is watching this podcast today, wants to develop a new startup, what's the key failure you guys faced, and how would you if you could go back and change it, how would you do that?
Yeah, it's a tough question, because I'd say, okay, so I'll answer from a tech point of view, because as predominantly my role. Coming into this, I thought that, we would launch with like the most perfect product, most beautiful user interface. We hit the ball out of the park. Um, but something I realized is that, and the reason why I look at it as a key learning is because when we launched, we failed to deliver that perfect product, right? But what we realized is there is never going to be a perfect product, right? Your product is always going to have issues. You're always going to keep iterating until you can come close to perfection. But I think that expectation, we saw it as a failure, but it was a great learning. That it's not only us, but it's a lot of founders who go through this. In fact, if you watch a bunch of Y Combinator videos, they tell you that you don't need to go out there with a perfect product. You need to go out there with a product that works, or a product that you can show something for. And that's when, you keep collecting feedback from your users to kind of go out there and build that perfect product. So I think that that not exactly a failure, but something we thought that was a failure, but helped us learn about product building. And then the second thing I think was team building. I think initially, in the early days, we failed to build that right team hierarchy, team structure. To get, I mean, the company is like a machine, right? Like each part has to function on its own, and there's hierarchy to it. So we failed in the initial days because we ourselves were new. We ourselves were, doing multiple things, balancing between exams and this and that. But I feel that, as we pulled the reins back in, we raised money, got a lot more serious. We got company hierarchy and company structure in order as well. Yeah, I mean, I guess that was one failure that we really learned from, and it was really important because today, if Shaamil and I are not there, our company will still run. Not to perfection. I mean, even if we're there, it won't run to perfection. But point is, it'll still run, and that's what you want to achieve as a founder. That's when you know you have the right team, I think. So yeah, those were two learnings, I guess.
Yeah. No, those are great points. I think, Karan, just to wrap it up, basically, I'm just saying that the two biggest failures, I mean, that I personally, at least for sure, did was, like essentially expectations and then assumptions, right? So expectations, because, I've watched like the media world glorifying startups and like, like raising money and like Yash said, launching a product, like a perfect product and all that. But in the end, like, it's a pretty normal life. I think like people have to be ready for the fact that startups are going to have a lot more downfalls than like upticks or anything like that. So definitely expectations, even in terms of funding, like it's not like just the second you go into the market you can just raise money. It doesn't work like that. It's a long process of building connections, building credibility and all of that. Second, regarding assumptions, I think there's a lot of dogma in this world about like, when is the perfect time to launch a product, when is the perfect time to raise money, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's very important that when you're building something as like fundamental or nascent as like an NFT startup, you need to stick to like fundamentals and not like what the business world is telling you. Like what, I mean, MBAs are great, but just like not a lot of the assumptions that are being said, like, oh, you should be raising only for like a week, or you should be only speaking to these VCs. There's nothing like that. So I'd say definitely go with your gut a lot more, because if you come in with assumptions of like, or even like with customers, like if you assume that your customer likes this product but actually they don't, that's like the biggest failure startup could ever face, because you need to be speaking to your customer at all times and taking honest feedback and then using that in your product. And I think that's something we made a mistake with early on in the company as well, where we assumed, like, or just one Rajinikanth scene is going to go for like millions and millions, which is not true, right? Like we had to figure out what is going to be the best type of utility that we can offer. Like then we figured out that this is very popular Rajinikanth Kabali suit that people really like, and so we heard that from a person. Then we made a 3D suit of that, where a person could wear that suit in the metaverse, right? So this is the kind of stuff that you need to like not assume about your customers, but rather learn from your customers. Is what I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think those are really interesting points, and definitely, I think touching up on first Yash's point, talking about how you can't get perfection. That's true, because otherwise Apple wouldn't be putting out updates every week to make their software better, or any company in the world, altogether. Just talking about that. I think you guys can't do perfection, but you can try to do your best, and that's definitely a great point. Watching Y Combinator videos, yeah, definitely helps out a lot with that. I've heard of the things you spoke about recently. Also, Prajna, on Shaamil's point, I think that expectations and assumptions are really important. And this thing you spoke about, I think when I saw Diginoor in the start, I saw your price ranges and I was like, that's a lot of money. And then now you guys have pivoted to lesser, and I can see that it's more viable into the Indian market, I think, than it was before. So I definitely see you guys got the customer feedback, and customers always help out. And that's really nice that you actually help, took that feedback. So, moving on to, about the future of Diginoor, what do you think? You guys have put out, I think, about 4 to 5 Kollywood movies right now, from the Tamil film industry. Are you guys going to, what is the future plans? Is it Bollywood movies? Is it something else, going into some other type of different things, just a lot of things developing in the crypto NFT field right now. So what is the future plans for Diginoor as a whole?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, like not only for the audience, Karim, but like for ourselves as well, like for Shaamil and me, because look, we're a relatively young startup. It's just 1.5, 2 years now. And we still, to date, need to talk a lot more to our users and really figure out what it is that they want, right? But after having done that for a bit, I think we're in a direction where we've kind of built out 3 verticals. We've built obviously our NFT marketplace for users to trade, these new financial assets that are NFTs through cinema. We've built, India's first truly decentralized crypto casino where people can come on and play all these casino games with the crypto that they've invested in over the years and potentially grow that money. And finally, we've delved into something known as DAOs, DAOs. I don't know how familiar your audience is with what a DAO is, but if I had to put it in 2 sentences, a DAO is basically a shared bank account that a number of internet strangers are part of, and they all kind of vote on how that money should be spent. And this could be used for a variety of purposes, right? Whether you're a VC who wants to raise money from the public and then have the public vote on which startup that money should flow into, or which company that money should flow into, or whether you're raising money to invest in solar assets, right? Where you raise a bunch of money from the public through crypto, and the public who's contributed the money, they vote on where the solar farm should be deployed, whether in Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu. So we found these 3 concepts to be very interesting out of speaking to users and just studying the space in general. But are these concepts going to work? Are they going to be the breakout products for us? We don't know yet. Time will tell, and a lot more conversations with our users will tell.
Yeah, no, and to develop on that content you talked about, Karan. So, like to give your audience a little bit of context. So, Kollywood is something that we started off with, but today we've expanded our reach. Where today we control 80% of the Punjabi film industry exclusively. We also have majority of the Malayali film industry, with us as exclusive content partners. We also have quite a few Bollywood partners like Reliance Entertainment and the Butt family, Mukesh Butt, and a couple of good folks in Bollywood as well. So yeah, we've expanded our content in that sense. Like Yash said, NFT marketplace is only one vertical, but we've made sure that we expand our content. We're not too sure how this is going to pan out, especially with the economic downturn, the crypto crash, the NFT tax, all sorts of stuff. But we have like tried to protect our downside as much as possible by just signing as much content, and these are all perpetual agreements. So we can figure out, if you have to do if you have to go back into stealth mode and build for the next 2-3 years and then come back with the content, that's something that we'd be is definitely a possibility, right? Because we're not going to convince ourselves that everything is great right now in the markets. But yeah, apart from that, I'd say yeah, the DAO, I think, especially the solar DAO, is something very interesting. And then on top of that, we're looking to do something like the Bolly DAO, which is basically this Bollywood production house that runs as a DAO in some way. So like if you have 100,000 fans, they can come in together, put $100 and then they can decide who should be the actor and who should be the actress, what's the plot, what's the story, and then they also get to reap the box office rewards from that movie's like revenue, right? So that's the kind of like stuff that we're trying to work on. Let's see how far it'll pan out. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely very, very cool. I definitely heard of your starting part. I've heard of decentralized casinos and DAOs as well. Being in the finance market, starting finance, I've heard of them. Not too much into that stuff, but I think that's really cool. Getting a decentralized casino where people can bet. Is there an age limit on that, or is it just anyone could do?
Yeah, so I mean, like, obviously we'll have to like adhere to all the laws of each geography. For example, in a place like Switzerland, 18 is legal age to participate in casinos, stuff like that. Whereas if you're in the US, in a place like Vegas, it's 21 if I'm not wrong,
Yeah,
right?
21.
So based on the geography, we will have to make sure that only the right users are allowed to participate, users who are of the right age. Um, but yeah, that's something we'll be sure of. We don't want to be on the wrong side.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, definitely. That's interesting. Just going into so thank you for telling us about Diginoor, about your future plans. I think it's very, very cool that the public gets to know what is actually in the market. We don't exactly get these points, and now they can actually go search these out, Google them. What is DAO? What is decentralized casino? Find out more about that personally. So talking to this question personally to you, Yash, I know about few of your projects before, like Toy Joy Foundation and few of the others. If you've coded, you did the poll in the Sisha elections in the high school, in our high school elections and everything. How have those how have those impacted? Did they help you a lot when you were creating Diginoor, or how did they specifically? Did you learn something out of those? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, for sure, man. So I guess I mean, all through my life growing up, like everyone else, I've had 1,000 ideas, right? But your your ideas are worth nothing without execution, right? Everyone, if you've thought of an idea, someone else has thought of it as well, right? But these ideas are nothing without execution, and I think Toy Joy and the entire voting platform that we created for school helped me realize that. They helped me realize that executing something is a lot harder than just thinking of it and imagining it into existence, right? And both of these projects, especially Toy Joy, was a long-term project, right? It's something we ran for about 3 years, and it took us time to build. It took us time to form a team of like-minded, folks. So all of these skills I picked up from Toy Joy and the voting platform essentially translated to Diginoor, in terms of um, uh, thinking of an idea and then getting the ball rolling. I knew how to do that now. I mean, it seems trivial and simple enough, right? You think of an idea, you work on it, but it isn't that straightforward. Like, where do you start? How do you start? So these are questions that I had answered already, because I knew the first thing I had to do was put together a team of like-minded people, and that's what we did first with Diginoor. Then I knew how to get started off with building a product, right? From imagining the product to getting it onto pen and paper, documenting it, modeling it. That translated to Diginoor as well. And yeah, just a bunch of these small, minute skills translated very well onto Diginoor. Though Diginoor was a completely different ball game, I feel far bigger than the projects we had done previously. But it still gave me the confidence to kind of execute it and go ahead with it irrespective of the outcome, whether it failed or not. Because we failed like a lot in the past. Like we've done projects that haven't worked. So yeah, I think just all these small things definitely did get um, transferred onto the entire Diginoor building process.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. The execution is always harder than just thinking of an idea. A lot of people think of the same idea, but not everyone ends up executing it. This question personally goes out to Shaamil, and just talking about a few of your experience in the past. Shaamil, you were involved in the Google Science Fair. You did really, really well. You came in the news and everything for it. You also did a project with the government of Tamil Nadu during the COVID-19 pandemic, where you made a service chatbot with them. You also helped with the voting platform. How do you think for you these experiences have helped you, build Diginoor, or even helped you with other things specifically? What do you think were the main key takeaways from it?
Yeah, no, that's definitely these experiences shaped my life in many ways. I think in ways I couldn't have ever imagined. Sorry, one second. Yeah. Anyway, I think with regards to Google Science Fair, I think it was just a very research focused thing I wanted to do. I felt like, I wanted to go back into how can I disrupt something. I mean, obviously, it was just like a school project in many ways. It was not something that, like a $1 billion idea, but I just felt like if I had to think of something futuristic, what would it be? And then that's how, like, the entire idea to like build this embedded motion detection system using LDRs, light dependent resistors, came out. And so I found that very interesting. And then Google Science obviously like gave me this recognition of like finalist, and then a little bit of prize money as well, which is nice. And then I think after that, the Tamil Nadu, I mean, specifically the Chennai COVID chatbot was very cool because we essentially saw a lot of misinformation, or rather like lack of information regarding COVID support related help. Like for example, like what's the nearest treatment center? How can you get a COVID test done? XYZ. And so that's why we built this vernacular bot. When I mean vernacular, I mean like English, Tamil, Hindi, a very like inclusive chatbot that can let people know about like what is the nearest like treatment center, how many cases do you have right next to you, all that kind of stuff, right? And partnered with the commissioner of Chennai, and then after that we got over like 3 million messages, like just on that chatbot alone. And so I think that was something very big for me to learn how to build a product. We weren't earning money, obviously it was very non-profit initiative, but I did learn quite a bit about like I mean, obviously, like Yash said, we had a lot of problems as well. Like the first time we launched the bot, it completely failed. For some reason, the people were texting again and again, and then we were just like saying, "Sorry, we'll speak to you later. Like we'll get back to you later." So like it was a very big problem because it was very serious because a lot of people had COVID related issues, and then our chatbot was just not responding. Right, so we had a lot of problems and failures and all that. So that was actually something that shaped my experience. And then the Sisha voting thing also was very simple. We had a lot of external help that helped us out with this. Definitely wasn't something like an initiative of our own, but the idea was ours, right? So we decided, we wanted to. We saw this very old system in Sisha where there's like you write your candidate in a chit and then put that in a box, and that's been running for the last 50 years. We weren't really very happy with that because I mean I know that a lot of our friends were writing random names like Superman on that chit and keeping it in. So
Yeah.
obviously we were like to solve that issue. We wanted to build the chatbot and I say build the election software or whatever, and we also prioritize like like a very fair system, and I think that's proved by the fact that both Yash and I lost in the elections. So we didn't rig the elections in any way. Like we didn't have that Bill Gates story where we hacked something and then put ourselves in a class with certain people. But yeah, yeah, I think all of these experiences were definitely very helpful in just like learning how to build a product, how to deal with failure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that definitely, sums up everything. Failure is the key to all success. That's what a lot of people say around the world. So I think that, helped you guys out as well. Just going into, now that we spoke about these important things, going into a little more fun part about the podcast and, just talking about what basically just like a few tricky questions for you guys. So if I could start with, no, I know you guys for a long time, but I'm going to give you both the opportunity to expose each other on this platform. Is that what is a story you guys know each other, and like, what is a story that both of you know about each other, and would like to say you're like insanely known for that story, like something really funny or something you did, like something messed up.
I'll let Yash go first because based on the severity of the story, I'll guess on a similar level.
Okay. Thing is, with Shaamil, there's multiple, but there's some I can't mention here. But I think I'll go for like a really lighthearted and funny one. So, so Shaamil was with us in Sisha till about
Ninth.
ninth end is
Yeah.
when he left before he came back. So he left to Dubai, right? And obviously he left for some personal reasons, is what he tells us. But I have another theory as to why he left. So if you remember, there's this inter-house debate competition in Sisha,
Yeah.
and the topic was water conservation or something around that.
Yeah.
And then Shaamil did this entire monologue about, how we must all share water, and
Yeah.
it was just hilarious and funny, and yeah, it became somewhat of a joke in school, not for
Yeah.
too long, just for a day or two. Everyone was laughing about it, but I think that was the last day I saw Shaamil in school. So my theory is that's why he left. Obviously, it's not true, but I just like to theorize about it and just pull his leg. But I think that's just one funny story I can think of.
No, absolutely. I think Yash went for the hardest one. I think definitely. I'm trying to think. Honestly, I mean, it's crazy. Yash is trying to maintain the spotless. Like no.
That's
Uh,
what I think about Yash as well. I have a lot of stories about Shaamil, but I don't have anything about Yash. And I'm like, where
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
this?
I mean, whatever I maybe do know that's funny is and hilarious, I'm probably not allowed to share it as well. So it's a little hard. It's a very thin line. Karan, do you have any stories that I can touch upon? Anything like he did in school? I'm trying to think.
See, I have this dark side that no one has seen, so I keep it hidden.
Yeah. No,
Shaamil got to hack his computer.
yeah, it's crazy. I just haven't. Damn. I just haven't like. I should probably maintain a record of things that Yash has done. That is right.
Exactly what I'm saying. I think the first day I met Yash, in fifth grade, Yash walks into our class and he's just like full tip top man. Is like, I'm like, okay, this guy's like, we were close friends and everything. We made good friends and start. Then in the eighth, he gets shuffled, and after that, he's like this tip top guy from the start. I don't know what he's done.
Yeah, but I
Oh
know.
yeah, except with the teachers, Chitra ma'am.
Yeah, definitely. I think.
Yeah,
Oh
the
yeah,
teachers I got into a lot of trouble with. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I think I also had like a fair share of trouble with our English teacher and all sorts of problems. But damn, yeah, I mean, Yash,
I have a story for Yash. I just
go ahead,
remembered
yeah,
actually.
go ahead.
You remember in our 11th grade when we were in class and you were doing math and English, and then she kicked you out of. She got pissed off and made you stay extra to write your English essay.
Are we allowed to say her name?
Yeah, you can say her name.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, Philomena ma'am it was. Right?
Philomena ma'am, yeah.
I'm pretty sure Shaamil got punished for the same, because every time she punished me, she by default punished Shaamil as well.
Like
Yeah.
it's a duo thing, like and Yash should find a way to get all the entire backbench also, like screwed up.
Yeah.
Make us laugh, and then all of us have to leave the classroom. But yeah. So,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was the only. I think that's the only thing I know Yash to get trouble with is the teachers, nothing else. So yeah, funny stories though. Yeah, no, definitely. I should call you guys one day to know the stories you can't discuss on the podcast.
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely would be happy to share. But who knows?
Sure.
You might just do a follow-up episode where you're exposing the both of us, so we might not share.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have an episode. When the podcast reaches, let's say when the podcast reaches 50 episodes, we're going to have an episode with you again. The 50th episode. You guys are special.
Nice.
Actually, one of the reasons I started this podcast is because I knew that I could call on people. And I always wanted to call you guys on, like, ever since, even before you guys started Diginoor, I knew you guys had great ideas and everything you could share with people on the podcast. So definitely, I'm really, really glad that you guys could make it to the podcast today and be a part of this, this thing and make it memorable for my team and I. So
Absolutely, yeah.
Just talk.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, sure. So just talking about this, it's a tricky question I give all my guests on the podcast. It's like, if you had 100 million to own one business firm, or you could invest in stocks, you could invest in your own company as well, but that would be boring. Like, at least make it a little spicy, do something else. What would you do with 100 million, or how would you you can invest in different things as well. What would you do with that money?
Shaamil, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely. No, I think for me it's fairly clear. I mean, if I don't have an immediate idea to start on, which is the case right now, like a new idea to start, I'd say the 100 million will definitely go into like starting or investing or maybe buying a VC fund in some way. I think that would definitely be of interest to me because $100 million is quite a bit of capital to put into different ideas. I think VC is something, I mean, over the last 3-4 months, speaking to over 30-40 venture capital firms and like in angel investors has really shaped my interest towards the investing and VC space. So I definitely want to be starting like a VC fund that has an investment thesis specifically for teenage entrepreneurs, like people in the college community, teenage entrepreneurs, and also people in Web3 in general. So yeah, I'd say like a VC fund would be very interesting because like if I had to invest my own 100 million just go into one idea, but I think VC is very interesting because I can work with so many different bright individuals and then help them build their company, not only from a capital basis, but some advice or the other from my mistakes. But yeah, VC is definitely something I would do.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I guess I have a slightly different answer. Like, I mean, I would definitely. I mean, if I have $100 million, I'd invest it like on myself. Not in the traditional way you think. I'm not saying my next startup or anything. I just use it to experience different things in life, man. Travel around. Yeah, I think sometimes we take life too seriously. Like how do I make it $1 billion? How do I make it 10 billion? But I think I just start off by enjoying that 100 million, fly first class, like book a nice hotel, travel the world, invest in myself that way, keep myself happy, and then later on figure out how I want to spend the rest of it. It's a lot of money. I have enough time to figure out how I want to spend 100 million.
Yeah, I think that's a fun answer. Like Elon Musk is earning billions of dollars, but he's not having any fun. So if you're not having fun in life, what's the point?
I'm sure he's having fun, sending us to Mars. But yeah, I mean, I guess until I find that thing that that becomes like my so-called purpose. I think I just spend it on myself, have some fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Money.
For sure. I think both are great answers. VC fund, definitely amazing answer to, invest in different ideas. And for you, it is just having fun. I think having fun is great. Yeah. So who do you think is one person who inspired you guys to achieve your goals, like personally, both of you?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Because I think I know Yash's answer. It's pretty straightforward. For me, I have no idea.
One person who's inspired me, is it? Dude, honestly, like it just keeps changing over time. And like initially, I tell you, it's it was someone like a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk, who building like this next gen tech. I would tell you at some point it was my uncle who's been like my tech guru all my life. But honestly, it just keeps changing because like I realized at every point in life your goals keep changing, right? Like 2 years ago, your goal was probably to build the next $1 billion idea, and now your goal might be to take life easy, enjoy, have fun. So it's just hard to pinpoint one person, but if I had to like really lock down on someone, I'd say it's two people. I think it's might sound like a cliche answer, but I think it's my dad and my uncle because you know however much these goals change in life, like they're the two people like I can always relate to, and I always have something to learn from. Whether it's learning how to enjoy life, whether it's learning how to build a successful business, whether it's learning how to be be tough. Uh, uh, it's just at every point, at every stage, even though the goal changes, there's something I can learn from the both of them. So I think, yeah, it has to be the both of them if I had to like pinpoint two people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think very honestly, Karan, like I think it's very hard to pick a role model. I mean, like the reason I'll explain is because I feel like any of these big role models, they portray a very like positive side of their self, like on like media and all that. But we've seen this like in the works that it's actually a lot more there's a lot more negative behind the, under the hood type of stuff that goes on that people don't get to know about. So I can't like mention any big personality because everyone has something wrong that they've done in their lives, something negative that we just don't know about. So I personally don't like to, like mention any big names. But apart from that, like I just, it's like a group of people. I like to pick great qualities from certain people. Like even friends of ours, like for example, like Adit from Zepto, the fact that he was able to start and build a behemoth at a very early age is something that I was inspired by. And then Kunal Shah, behind the scenes, looking at him work and build two successful companies, which is very actually very rare for like an entrepreneur. From free charge to credit today is also something interesting. And then, like Yash said, Steve Jobs. And then from a family perspective, definitely like my dad, because he came from this village background in India, and then he tried to he worked extremely hard to give us like the like comfortable life, give us an education and all sorts of stuff which he didn't really have. So that's inspiring. And then my brother obviously got me very deep into computer science. Obviously he's taken a different route, but he showed me the way in some way and told me, like, when I was a naive kid, just worrying about like the next football game and like which girl should I next impress and speak to. I think he really put me into put a lot of things into perspective for me, where he said, like, this is the real life, and like like this is one pathway that you can pick that will help you get where you want to be. But yeah, that would be my answer. Sorry, we don't have like a one person to give you. Yeah.
All good. I think that those are great answers to have. I definitely feel everyone has two sides, and we only see one side of the story for the most of the people we see online. So that's a great.
I think Karan Gaglani is my inspiration.
Yes, thank you so much. But I think you guys are, inspirations to me as well. You guys, I think as people in high school, you guys have always been the people, I would say, who've been starting things. And personally, I have been starting things. It's like healthy competition, but it always helps that, when you're starting things, you're trying to do better, and you're trying to make each other better than the other. So it's always, it always helps out that you guys have been great inspirations to me as well. Talking about this, if you could write a book tomorrow, what would you write about?
Yash, I go ahead. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go first.
Yeah. I think, okay. I mean, honestly, Karan, like, there's a lot of things. I mean, that a lot of important topics that need to be covered, but a lot of it is already covered, and I don't think I have enough gyan to share that I can write a full book about. But one thing that I feel like is underrated, or just like rarely talked about in media or books, shows, or whatever, is like the actual difficulty of running a startup. I think, like, staying away from what the media's perception of how successful a company is versus how actually it's doing is very important. So I write a book about how, like, just founders should not have too many expectations for like a perfect startup their first time, and tell them, like, it's not all glorified and like, oh, funding and all sorts of stuff. There's 99% of the time there's something that's going wrong, and you're actually like breaking your head to figure out how to solve it, right? Whereas most shows and everything show you like, oh, like it's like happy life and like everything is going great and all sorts of stuff. So I would write a book about that, because I feel like I mean, again, I don't have too much gyan to share about this, but I think it's definitely something that's not talked as much as it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess like for me, like I would write something a little more about like um, something related more to like personal growth rather than company growth. I think over past 1.5 years, like I've got to learn a lot about how important certain aspects are in life. For example, just mental health in general. It's everyone talks about it, right? Like, but over the past 1.5 years, like I've gotten to learn a lot about it. Like I've read a lot about it. Just because you're away from college and apart from the company, you have a lot of time to like just learn about so many different things. And I think that this is something I've learned a lot about. And I think it's a very important topic. And again, I'm no way qualified to give people gyan about this topic, but I definitely think that it's something I would like to write about someday, because I was just reading a statistic that, I mean, again, don't quote me on the statistic, but a lot of people, it's the number one or number two disability in the world, and if it's something that's serious, then um, there should be a way for us to figure out, what's going on down there, or up there rather, that causes different people to feel different, without taking this too deep or making it a little too, thing, just on a lighter note. But I think it's an important topic, and I think that definitely everyone should have access to the right information around it, and just the right, support and help around it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely important topics. How to start a company, very important. And mental health, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, people have, grown more far apart, and mental health is definitely very, very key for people's success. So great topics to write about. So just talking about this, what are a couple of books or a couple of movies you think you would recommend to the audience, which you really like personally?
Uh, honestly, Karan, I've only read so many books to recommend in the first place. But I think like the very few books I've read have been very impactful. Like I'm right now reading Bitcoin Billionaires. I think it's very interesting. Like to see the early days of Bitcoin and see like talk, like and how it played out with like real world events. Like for example, during this entire financial crisis of the country of Cyprus, whatever. Right, there was a big problem where. The government just decided they're going to take away 50% of hardworking salaryman's or salaries, right? And that was very sad. And so, like, I think these kind of events and how Bitcoin showed its true worth to the world was very insightful. And apart from that, I think I think like in eighth grade, I think this was one of the first proper books I fully read. Like, didn't just leave halfway. Was Zero to One by Peter Thiel. I think that was a very insightful book as to like how to take a company from the idea stage to execution. And then I briefly remember reading the full Elon Musk book, but I honestly don't remember much of it, so I can't really say that was.
Sure.
But yeah, apart from that, movies. I've definitely watched a lot more movies to recommend. I'd say my number one movie of all time is Pursuit of Happiness. There's no two ways about it. And then after that, I think on a lighter note, Forrest Gump is a great movie. And then Three Idiots was it's a Bollywood movie, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I guess something I recommend is I guess this is midway between a book and a movie. It's actually a documentary, and it's a documentary about AlphaGo. I don't know if you or your audience have heard about what AlphaGo is, but AlphaGo was basically this AI system that beat the world's best Go player at Go. And I guess that one documentary, I think it's the best documentary ever made, because it just blew my mind as to the power of AI, and how it's going to rewrite every single thing in this world, to the way from the way we video call, to the way you record podcasts, to everything we do. It's going to be rewritten by AI, and it made me want to be part of that revolution. So a big part of my time and my attention is taken up by AI, and how it works and what it is. And to recommend a book, I'd say this book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. So basically, the book is a very practical book. It has 5 psychological tools you could use to influence another person's decision, or to make another person mend their decision to your way. I know it sounds very sinister and evil, but it's actually very, very helpful, because look, like when most people are out there in the world, you're competing, right? Like it's not a fairy tale world, right? And sometimes you need to know how to get your way or get your work done. And I think few formulas or tools are definitely very helpful, because life is always about negotiations and compromises, and just how well you can handle other people in every walk of life. So I think that book is really practical, really simple, straightforward tools. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for the amazing recommendations you guys gave and the passion you have in specific topics. Just to wrap up everything now, finally, the last question I have for you is, it's called role reversal. You guys can ask me any question you have, anything at all you guys want to know, and I'll give you the answer to that. It's okay if you don't have it also. Okay, you can go for it.
Go ahead, Yash.
No, I just need like a minute to think. If you have one, go ahead.
Same here. I'm trying to think. I'd say Karan. Okay, so this is definitely a little bit of a deep question, but I think when you start off, when you start off a business, you start off a podcast, or even a YouTube channel, you initially have this problem of like everyone has this problem of you don't get initially 1,000 listeners immediately. I'm sure you have like uh, uh, a couple of handful of listeners who might be like very big fans of the episode. So I wonder how did you? I'm sure the podcast has scaled a lot since the time you started it, but how did you deal with that initial struggle of like starting the podcast, inviting people to the episode, and really also like I'm sure you had a lot of expectations. Like everyone has expectations like, oh, my content is going to do amazing in the outside world, but then mostly it underperforms in some way. So I just wonder how if that happened, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so I think that personally I had experience from a few of the businesses in the past, and when I came into the podcast, I knew my expectations have to be grounded. I'm not hitting 1 million views in my first episode itself. That's not going to happen. That's people come and think that's easy. Like you guys said, nothing's easy. It's all a gradual process. It goes slowly, everything. So all I had to do was pick, in a podcast specifically, I had to pick a lot of things out. Now, for me to pick out, I had to pick out my audience. My audience was two countries. It was mainly India and it was US, because I was studying in the United States. I am from India. All my listeners are mostly from these countries, because it's mostly starting off with people I know first, right? It's going to be people that are starting off. So I registered my podcast, and then after that, what I did was the idea I had was, it started in COVID, actually in the COVID pandemic, when I saw a lot of these podcasts started booming, and I always liked listening to podcasts, especially a few of the podcasts I'll give credits to. I think Jay Shetty's podcast, then the Ranveer show by Beer Biceps, one of the really good podcasts. I really like listening to this podcast. Really got a lot out of it, from different industries, and I think that's something I wanted to put out, because I just didn't want to get a lot of different. I didn't want to get famous people, but I wanted to get people who have a story and can actually teach something. And even if one person, my purpose behind the podcast is, even if one person listens to the podcast and it impacts from it, that's the goal. Like for me, I impacted from learning so much from you guys today. So that was my goal behind it. If no one listens to it, it's fine. But when I went into the first podcast, I had two people in my club in Ohio State, which were easy to get in. They were going into investment banking. I called them, and we had a talk about investment banking, about finance, about what I actually passionately liked. I started that episode, got the people. That was my strategy, because I wanted the people in the club to listen to the podcast, and they were the president of the club. So it was a good strategy to start off with. I wanted to hit 200 people in the first episode. I hit 300 totally on all platforms, which was above my expectations, which was great. It went down in the middle. My third and fourth episode went a little down, but I had to capitalize on it. So I learned one thing important is timing of publishing the episode is really, really important in a podcast. Because if you're publishing on a wrong day, people aren't going to listen to it. Weekends are bad to publish a podcast, because people are, especially in the United States, people are partying outside and stuff. So you're not exactly posting on the correct time, especially our age. People who are 19, 20s, they are always going out doing that. So I try to post on a Thursday or a Wednesday, where people, more people will actually listen to the podcast that week. They try to finish it, try to do that. Posting at what time? Posting at 7 p.m. in the evening, posting at what? It all works so much on strategy, so much on this. Is people think that a podcast is just about going here, talking to people, posting that, but a lot of my team works with me on video editing, how we edit the videos, how we strategize posting, how do we content create, what are the questions to ask to people. It's a lot of work together, but there's a lot to learn out of it as well. So I think that's my answer to it. So Yash, you have a question? Okay.
Yeah, I was just like super engrossed listening to your answer. So haven't really thought of an affirmative question, but I guess if I just had to ask you one, like, what's next for you? Like, what's next? Like,
I'm working on a startup actually right now, trying to get that off ground, and I think that's my next. I don't want to give away details of the startup. I'll definitely tell you guys about it, but not on the podcast. It's something I'm trying to wait on and try to work it around, because I think I think the main part why I built startups was, when I was 14, I was very confused in high school what I wanted to actually do. When I went into startups, I realized that I really like business. My parents had a startup as well. They started it 20 years back, but I really enjoyed the fact that I could be involved in a parent's business always. From day one, I used to try to help them out in whatever possible way I could. And now that I could do the possibility, got that opportunity, tried my own things, and finally I wouldn't say my startups are a success because none of the ideas which I worked on my ideas great. It was like more of a project, more of a learning experience. But now I'm more serious about what I exactly want to do in the startup space. So I know what I want to build. So I'm trying to do that right now. And that's definitely trying to launch by next year, which is, the aim, which is the aim and everything. So just trying to figure out, we're trying to launch around the world, and that's legalities come into play, trying to be on the correct side of the track, like you said. So that's, working on that and everything. But altogether, startup and just trying to build this podcast to get in more episodes, talk to people, the main reason I started this podcast was to talk to people from their experiences and not make the same mistakes in my startup. So that's definitely, something. So thank you so much, guys. So yeah, that was my answer.
Good stuff. All the best for your startup.
Thanks, bro. Guys, thank you so much for coming on the episode, Shaamil and Yash. I think today we've learned a lot about the NFT, the crypto space, what's going to happen in the world, what's the future of your company, Diginoor, and I hope that you guys really succeed and you guys are doing a great job out there. So I just want to end the episode by saying that I hope to meet you guys soon, definitely, and I hope that we have fun doing what we're doing in the future. That's something that's key to doing what we do, and that's something I want to end this episode by saying that. Yeah. So thank you for coming, guys.
Thanks for having us.
I mean, it was great, Karim. Thanks for having us. And this podcast better get more than 300 listeners.
We'll do it.
No, but it was great. It was great talking to you. And
sure.
Yeah, it was good fun.
Sure.